Hey guys, Rob here with 3D Printscape. Today I'm going to show you how to create a basic object in Tinkercad. It's one of the easier programs to work with. It's not the most advanced, but if you're just looking to create a replacement part that's simple, or like bookshelves, which is going to be what we're going to be creating today, it's really simple, so I'll walk you through that process. Tinkercad is free. It's among a handful of them that are free. I will be doing some tutorials on FreeCAD as well coming up pretty soon. If you have any questions about the video or about some of the processes I use or have recommendations, please make sure to leave a comment below. Before we jump over to the computer, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe. Again, it really helps the channel out. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump over to the computer and get started. Alright guys, so I'm here at my computer and logged into my Tinkercad account. If you don't have an account, you'll just have to go through and create one from the main login page. It's really simple and you can bind it to your Google account. I would walk you through the process, but I already have the account, so it'll be difficult to actually go back through, but it's really straightforward. You just basically hit create new account and then select Google, assuming you have one, and then just log in with that. Or you can just create a username and password. Like I said, the process is really simple, and then once that's done, you will log in and then you'll hit this page here, which is basically your dashboard. Alright, so from here, I want to go to create new design. Actually, before I do that, let me just show you something real quick. They have a decent section to kind of give you quick overviews on how to do some things, more of starters, and then a couple lessons. If you have a little bit of extra time, I would recommend going through all of the starters here and then take a look at the lessons and see if any of them really stand out as something you think is worth the time. And it's going kind of slow here. Here are some of the more advanced, but not too advanced, just little tutorials. They are pretty good. It's worth going through them if you plan on doing more and more with Tinkercad. To me, I only use Tinkercad for more of the basic objects. I chose to start with this versus FreeCAD just because of simplicity. I wanted to show you guys you can actually create things pretty easily. I guess for basic objects, Tinkercad is really my go-to. For more advanced things, I would switch over to FreeCAD. And it's really just because of the ease of use. I like how Tinkercad has everything in a web browser versus having to actually install the application, but that does have some limitations as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me go back to my home area here. Alright, so now let's just go to create design. I want to create basically a 3.5 by 5 mounting bracket, kind of like a bookshelf arm. It's not going to be used for that, but that's what I was looking to create. I know there are probably examples or items that I can just take from Thingiverse, but sometimes I just like to create them just to get experience on that side, and because that's not always going to be the case. You might not always find what you're looking for, especially when you're trying to make a part for something that broke. Alright, so let's just go ahead and show you a couple things on here. So first, you got your grid. You can edit the grid. I tend to go with inches, and then you can use presets if you want to actually set the max grid size to something for your printer. Let me just switch this back here just so I can do this. So I'm going to set this based on the Ender 3. So we'll do 320 by 320. And then I will switch it back to inches. So it did the conversion for me. Update grid. And then as you can see, the snap grid is set to 1/8 of an inch. You can change that if you need to. And then as far as actually moving around on the grid, it's similar to Cura, where if you hold the right mouse button and just turn, you can scroll around, or you can just click here, top, right, or whatever the case may be. You don't really see much of a difference because we don't have an object on it, but that's always something you can do here. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to want to use the wedge for most of this. Everything you're doing is going to be based off of some of these shapes, and then they do have additional text numbers on some of the more advanced shapes and such in here as well. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to stick with basic shapes. So we can just get a wedge. And then as you can see here, it's laying this way. I want it to have the long surface going up and down, so we need to rotate this. So if we click on it, we can go to rotate here, and then we'll want to rotate it 45. I like to just start it so it brings this up and then just type what I'm trying to do. It just is easier. Now if you look, it's partly below the grid. So let's just go ahead and click on this guy here, which will raise it up and down. And then you can, once this is at 0, you can see that it's even with the grid now. All right, so let's go ahead and look at dimensions. I wanted to make a 3.5 by 5.5 bracket here. So let's go ahead and change these dimensions. So here, I want it to be 1 inch thick. So if we turn this around, you can see that it's showing this measurement here. So let's just change this to 1. So that gives us the thickness there. All right, sorry, I messed up the camera angle there. So I got everything back on track here. If you do end up messing up the camera angle for whatever reason, you have everything all messed up and you just want to rehome it, go right here and just click home view. It'll bring it right back to here. I've had to use that quite a bit, especially getting started, because when you're kind of moving things around and such, it's easy to mess that up. All right, so I wanted it 1 inch thick by 1 inch tall, and then our 3.5 by 5.5. So now we want to make this one. We'll just do this one as the 5.5. So now that gives us the 5.5 inches. And we will clone this by going up here and just click on duplicate. All right, so we're going to have to rotate this so that we got a 90-degree angle here. So we'll just go ahead and drag this guy, same as before, so we get our 90. On bigger shapes like this, it's easier to go based on the snaps. On smaller shapes, that's not always going to be the case, which is why I like to type it in a lot of times. And then this is still our 5.5 inches. So we're going to have to click on this guy so we can get our measurements, and then we will change this to 3.5. All right, so now you can just go ahead and drag these down to align them. I'm just going to snap it to the grid here, so I'm just aligning it at this corner, and then I'm going to do the same with this one. So now we got a solid 90 degrees, and I want to group these together so that they can't move independently now. So let's just go ahead and select both of them. You can select them by how I just did, by dragging, or you can hold the shift button and click on both of them. It does the same thing. Holding shift is easier if you have a lot of objects in different places that you're trying to group or align. All right, so once that's done, we just go up to group or hit Control G, and now this is one item, so we can move everything around as if it's one. All right, so this gives us our frame. I want to angle both of these down a bit so that when you're looking at it here, it's not going to have just the flat surface. It'll be angled down like it should be. So we have a couple options there. We can use a wedge again and kind of bring it across here, or we can use a square or a box and bring it across. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to grab the wedge. So we'll have to take this piece again and go ahead and rotate it up. There it is. It's kind of hidden over here. So let's just do 45. Oops. All right, negative 45. And then we'll have to raise this up as well so that it's even with the grid. And let's just check our dimensions. Really care about the height right now. We want to make sure it's at least the same height as this, which it's 1.4. This is 1. Oh, we need to adjust this height here. All right, so let's go ahead and make this 1 because that's what we wanted earlier. All right, so now as long as this is at least the same height or taller as what you're working with, you should be fine. A potential issue you might run into when dealing with angles like this is if it's slightly taller, the angle offset might not cover all of the actual piece here. In that case, you might have to edit another piece afterwards or just switch over to a box or something. I'll do one piece here with this one, and then I'll do a box for the other piece. All right, so let's go ahead and let's set this to 1 as well. And the length doesn't matter too much at this point. We'll just do 4. It really depends at what point do you want to start cutting it off and angling it down. So I don't have any hard requirements here. I'm going to go based on what it looks like. So let's just go ahead and get this in place, and we can make adjustments from there. So let's go. I'm going to probably do a 12.5-degree angle. And then we'll drag this over and then align it with this piece of the grid here. Oop. All right. All right, so as you can see, it's aligned here, but it's not touching flush, so we're gonna have to drag it down a little bit here. In some cases, it is more difficult to work with the wedges. In some cases, it's easier. It just depends what you're trying to do. All right, so here, I think we're flush. Yeah, we're flush right at 1 inch down. So then we can adjust our angle over here so that we're actually hitting this piece, this corner as well. Unless you want to leave a lip, it's your choice there. Which, if you went with this, you would have the angle and then it looks like a 1/4 inch lip, which might not be a bad option as well, just so it doesn't snap off. But here's one part that I was talking about a minute ago where you could have a piece sticking out. So you just have to take a look at the image as you're going and kind of make adjustments. So to account for that, instead of making other changes, I'm just going to lower it a little bit. That will cover it. And now we're good. All right, so I like that. So we'll go ahead and cut this. So what we need to do now is click on this one, switch it from solid to whole, and then we need to select all of this again and hit group. So that will basically cut that for you. And then I'm going to do the same on this side as well. Where this is being used, the actual piece is going to be coming across here and sitting on the top surface, and then this is going to be going down on the wall. So I'm going to want to angle from here down so we don't have the gap or the flat surface here. It won't look right for that spot that I'm working with. Then once we do that, we can go ahead and put the holes in for the screws, just so we have the starting point. All right, so let's, like I said, I'll show you how to do it with the box this time. So let's go ahead and drag a box. You want to make sure that it's going to be at least the same height. So we got 1 inch here, so we're good. And go ahead and drag this over and adjust the size here just a little bit. And then we can adjust the angle so that it kind of gives us what we're looking for. Alright, so let's go ahead and change this around a little bit. Alright, so we're not quite flush there. We are now, I think. So, but with this angle, as you can see, it's kind of cutting off some of this, so we have to adjust it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just do 12.5 again. Kind of give us a baseline. Alright, so Alright, so we want to drag this down a little bit more. There we go, -1/8. Now that should be a line there. We can also see from the bottom as well. It looks like that's hitting that as I want it to. I just don't like this now. So we have to, the 12.5 isn't going to work. Let's go ahead and angle it a little bit more. Let's do another. Going this way should be, yeah, it's positive. All right, so let's just go ahead and do 12.5 again. That angle might be too much. Let's go back a little bit. Alright, so that's 7. Now we got to realign this. This probably wasn't the best shape for this. I was just trying to show you guys a couple options. Alright, so we got to angle a little bit more, so we'll do another 4. I'll just do 5. No, 4. Let's see how it turns out. Alright, that looks good, and it gives us a slight lip here, so that's pretty much perfect for what I'm looking for. Alright, so let's go ahead and select, click on this, switch it to whole, go ahead and select this guy and hit group, and now we got our angle. Alright, so this will pretty much be mounting flush against a wall surface, and this is what's going to be holding a light part. So we're going to want to put a couple screw holes in here. I'll probably do 2 here, and then 1 down here, and then same up here. I'll just do 3 as well. Another thing I want to show you quickly before we get into that is just a ruler. If you drag this on the canvas, it kind of gives you a starting point. So if you wanted to start doing alignments, if you wanted this over by 1 inch as an example, you can just put that in place and then drag over 1 inch, and it gives you what you're moving it. I don't use this too often. I basically do everything based on what the grid's showing me. Again, I'm not looking for a 1/32. Again, I'm not looking for extreme accuracy here. I have a lot of tolerance for error or just misalignment, just because of the parts that we're making. As long as the overall dimensions work, the rest of it I'm pretty open with. So I guess it really depends on what you're making. Alright, so let's go ahead and put those screw holes in that I was talking about. So we're going to want a cylinder. Let's go ahead and rotate this guy so that it's like this. See, there we go, 90. And then probably I'll go with a 1/4 inch for this one, and this will be more of the offset hole, and then just 1/8 of an inch for the inside of it. So we got to set the dimensions here. All right, so 0.25, 0.25, and where's the other one? Oops, 0.25. All right, so now this is a decent little starting point. Let's go ahead and clone this. Just go ahead and click it and duplicate. Now we've got 2 of them. I want this one to be 1/8 of an inch. So we'll go ahead and click here, just 0.125, 0.125, and 0.125. And now let's go to make this longer, actually. Right, so we want, we'll just do 1 inch. So if we pull these together, you can see that it looks flat. That's not really good for trying to use that as a starting for a screw hole. It just doesn't align. We want to raise this up a tad bit. So that's going to be too much with the default snap set at 1/8. So we're going to want to change this down to 0.5 maybe. Oops. Sorry, 0.05. and that is nice and centered there. Now we got to change this around as well. We're going to have to move it over. Oops, undo that. When working with the smaller shapes, it's sometimes difficult to get the exact movements in place, so that's why you gotta sometimes just type it in. And it's also easy to click on parts you don't mean to click on, like when you're trying to drag, clicking on one of these and just changing the size. Alright, so that is still a little bit offset. Let's move it over a tad bit more. So 0.06 maybe? No, 0.01. It's moving it from the base point, not where it was. Alright, so that's centered enough for what we're doing. Alright, so let's go ahead and select these and group this. So basically this will act as the base for the screw hole. Then we'll put it 2 here, 1 here, and then 2 here and 1 there. So we're going to need 6 of these total. So let's go ahead and create 6. That time I went ahead and just selected it and Control C and Control V, so copy and paste, and that just gave us 6 of them. Alright, there we go. Just want to be able to work with these here. Alright, now let's change the angle. If we bring this over and just kind of create the hole at that level, it's going to give us barely no lip here, and what that's going to do is that screw is not going to hold. It's just going to break the plastic and be a mess. So let's go ahead and raise this up. This is 1 inch. These are 1/4 inch. So that takes off a half. So I think if we raise this up a 1/4 inch, that's going to be about where we want it for the ones with 2. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, 1/4 inch. Let's see how that looks. Let's go and raise the other one up as well. Let's see what it looks like. And I don't like that. Alright, again, because I don't have exact dimensions that I'm working with, we're just trying to figure it out as we're going. Figure out what makes the most sense. So let's raise this one up 1 more. What does that look like? 1/8 of an inch? That, I think, looks good. Alright, so if we lower this one down 1/8. Alright, so this is 1/8 of an inch up instead of 1/4. That probably will work fine. Alright, so we're going to want two of them at this height and 2 of them at this height. Alright, so let's go ahead and raise this one up 1/4. And then this one is at 5/8. So we'll take this one up to 5/8. And then we want to rotate these so that it goes over on this one. So let's go ahead and do that. Oops, 90. Same with this. Alright, so just kind of put them in place here. We will do the alignment here in a second. Then same with this, just kind of drag it over where we think we need it. Alright, and then with these, we're going to want it about halfway up. So let's just go ahead and raise this up to 1/2 an inch, which should be about half. It's 1 inch thick, so let's see how that looked. No, that's a little bit high because it's moving the bottom up by half. So this would be at the halfway mark, so we want to move it down probably 1/8 of an inch. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. 3/8. That puts it right at half in the center of here, so that's good. Now we just need to figure out what placement we want. Alright, so we want to raise this one up 3/8 as well. And rotate it. kind of put it in place over here. So let's figure out how far down we want this. This is at the 1 inch mark. I wanted it about 1.5 inches down probably from the top. So we'll go, that's going to be the 1/2 inch, right? Pull the ruler here. All right, so that's 1/2 inch. And then we want to see how deep we want to put these in. So we want it to just kind of go in like this so that the screw will sit flat in there and then go through. So we want the other ones to be at the same level as well, at least this one. So we'll go ahead and select that, and then we're going to use the alignment tool. Alright, so if we go to align up here, you can see where you can align them in different positions. We want to align based on the back here, so that brings them both at the same distance in. Alright, and then this being 3.5, I want this at about the 2.25 mark. Let's go the other way with that. Actually, we'll go with the 2.5. That's far enough down that it should be good. All right. So let's go and close out the ruler and then drag this in as well. We don't want this quite even with those, just because of the way that the plastic is. This is out further, so about right here makes sense. It will give it enough of a starting point so that the screw will sit flush here. Alright, so let's go ahead and select these guys here, and select these 3, or one at a time, your choice, and switch them to whole. And then if we select this, we can group them, and now we have the holes here. So those are just the starting points for the screws. Alright, so now we got to do the same on this side, so let's kind of switch it around. Alright, this is a bit further, a bit longer of a piece, so we want these to be about 2 inches down, I would say is a good starting point. So let's go ahead and do that. And a little bit further back in so that it's flush. There we go. And then we want to align these together here, so let's go ahead and select them. I got the bottom one here, and then go to our align again, and we want to align them back and on the other axis as well. So we're trying to align them on both X and Y. Alright, so we go in and select this one. That'll bring them at the same depth, and then we want to bring them over based on this guy. So if we go here to center them, or if we go here, it will move the bottom one based on where the top one is. So let's go ahead and do that. And now those are even. Alright, so let's go ahead and move the other one here. I think right where it's at about the 4-inch mark is fine. So let's go ahead and drag it back down. What I'm looking for here, just like I was doing before, but I didn't quite explain it, is I want this thicker part to barely go into the plastic at every point. So right here is good. So that's looking good there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and select these, switch them to whole, and then select all of it and group them again. And now we have our part. Alright, so with that, I want to go ahead and export it so I can drop it into Cura. So let's do that. So we just want to go up to export, and then we want an OBJ. or STL. It doesn't really matter. Let's just do STL because that's going to be more common. And this can also work with some of the printers. I don't go that route though. I prefer to take it into the slicer that I'm used to so I can control it. Alright, so select STL. And so went ahead and save that. Alright, so now let's go to Launch Cura so I can show you what it looks like. Alright, so we just have Cura open here. Default Ender 3 profile. So I will drag the STL that we just created onto here. Now it's kind of looking like what you would expect. I wouldn't want to print it this way just because of you're really going to need supports for this unless it won't turn out right. Alright, so let's go ahead and rotate it. Now we can either turn it this way or we can just snap it based on the face that we want down. So I'm going to want the bigger flat surface down, so it'll be technically this side here is what I want to have as the base layer. So let's go ahead and do that. If we go to the rotate like we were just at and select face to align to build plate and then select the bottom, we are now good to go. So if we go back up to move, we can drag it wherever we want on the build plate, but that's going to print it like this, so we don't have to really worry about any bridging or supports. This is going to print just fine. The largest area is at the bottom. And go ahead and adjust our slicer. This will be supporting a little bit of weight, but not too much. I want to adjust the infill. I'm going to want this at about 50% just to be safe. Like I said, it will be supporting some weight. For a lot of the standard models and stuff like that, you'll be doing it, you're probably at 15 to 20%. And then I want to switch this to gyroid. It's a stronger infill. I cover the infills in some of the other videos. I will link to one of them below if you're interested. Alright, so let's go ahead and slice it. Let me check my material speed. Alright, that's fine. I was playing around with some of the temperatures before and I had it set really high. Alright, so now we can slice it. This guy will take about 7.5 hours to print. It uses a little bit of filament, not too much. Obviously, if we wanted it to be less dense inside, that will go down significantly, but that's not quite what we're looking for. And then if we go over to preview, we can see how the slicing worked. Kind of see each layer as it's going. As you can see, there's no issues here. It's just getting smaller as it's going up. So as far as the printer is concerned, this is an easy one. I guess the hardest part it's going to have is going to be these holes here, the top of them. But I mean, that's going to be 1/8 of an inch. So it shouldn't be an issue. That's an easy bridge for the printer, even if it's not tuned correctly. All right. So with that, we go ahead and save it to file, and then we can send it to our printer and go from there. Alright, so that's what I wanted to cover in today's video. I mean, like I mentioned, this is really more of an intro, just to kind of get you exposure to working with CAD programs. Tinkercad is really a great starting point just because of the simplicity, but I will be doing more videos on Tinkercad and on FreeCAD as well. So go ahead and keep an eye out for those. If there's anything specific that you'd like to see me attempt to make, I can't say make because somebody might come back with something very creative and I won't be able to do it. So if there's anything you want me to attempt to make, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'll see what I can do. And if you guys haven't already, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. It'll really help the channel out. It'll help us grow and help be able to support videos like this in the future. Alright guys, as you can see, you can do a lot with Tinkercad. There's a lot of options. I'm going to go into more detailed videos to show you how to do some more advanced stuff coming up here pretty soon as well. But that video should have at least got you started, make you think about some of the stuff that you can create on your own. But there are limitations as well. Some of the UI features are not as advanced as like FreeCAD as an example. I mean, this is browser based, so you're not installing anything, which makes that side of it nice. but it does have limitations. So it really depends what you're trying to create. Simple objects like what we just created, Tinkercad is perfect for. If you need to get into some of the more advanced objects where you're trying to get down to very precise dimensions, I would not recommend Tinkercad. You might want to go into more of a standalone CAD option like FreeCAD. There are other options as well. I mean, if you're really advanced with CAD, you can go up to AutoCAD and applications like that, but those are very expensive. So it's going to be out of the budget for most of us hobbyists. And well, frankly, I don't have it, so I'm not going to be doing any videos on it. Alright guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment below. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.